Manx Radio's Update with Dave Moore.
The time is 5 o'clock. You're listening to Manx Radio. I'm Dave Moore, and this is Update. Welcome to the programme. Half an hour of the latest news in the Isle of Man, plus sport, business, travel updates, along with the newsmakers in person. Coming up, politicians ask for more details on where an additional £20 million for healthcare would be spent. Government's presented its final island plan to Tynwald. We'll be reporting on that. And with the island's organ donorship moving from opt-in to opt-out, a reminder to residents to register. That's all coming up in the next half hour. But first of all, the update news headlines with Chanel Saku.
Fastamai. One person's been injured after a single-decker bus was involved in a crash with a crane in the south of the island earlier today. It happened near to Ballaghagan Corner. There were 11 passengers on board at the time. The Department of Infrastructure is in the process of examining CCTV to establish what happened. A spokesperson says while it must have been a shocking experience for everyone on board, the department is grateful for the response of the passengers and the driver for ensuring everyone was able to leave the bus safely. Forecasters at Ronaldsway Met Office are warning of frost this evening. A yellow weather warning will come into force at 7 p.m. and be in place until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Road surface temperatures are expected to fall close to or slightly below freezing across the island, giving a risk of frost forming on untreated surfaces. And the Red Arrows will be returning to the island during this year's TT. The Royal Air Force's aerobatic team will return to Douglas Bay as part of the festival's entertainment schedule. They'll be here on Thursday, the 5th of June from 7:30 p.m. In international news, Israel says it's launched a limited ground operation to retake part of a key corridor in Gaza. Its military ordered the evacuation of civilians in combat zones. Donald Trump claims peace in Ukraine remains very much on track. It's following what he describes a very good phone call lasting around an hour with Ukraine's president. And former Chelsea and Arsenal left-back Ashley Cole has been inducted into the National Football Museum's Hall of Fame. He won 3 Premier League titles, 7 FA Cups and a Champions League during a career that saw him make 107 appearances for England. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you, Chanel. On to the weather. This evening will be dry and sunny as the wind falls light and variable, and as we heard on the news, it'll be turning cold tonight with clear skies and very light winds, allowing temperatures to fall as low as -2 in some places inland, giving it a widespread slight frost. After a chilly start, tomorrow will be another dry and sunny day, the light to moderate winds settling to the east or southeast, temperatures reaching up to 12 Celsius at best. Dry and bright with sunny spells at first on Friday, but turning increasingly cloudy as outbreaks of rain develop overnight into Saturday. Breezy with a moderate to fresh east to southeasterly wind. Maximum temperature around 13 Celsius.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Simply income protection from Kestrel Insurance. A choice of benefits. Simple underwriting and peace of mind with a regular income for up to 2 years if you're unable to work due to illness or injury. Kestrel Insurance is registered with the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock, often fitted within a week. Furnitureland for 3-piece suites, dining and living room furniture, and a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland, West Street, Ramsey.
Making life easier with Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill. Are you looking for a stair lift? Look no further with Which Magazine's #1 recommended stair lifts. Now provided by Manx Mobility. Access BDD stair lifts. Call us today on 200 680. The exclusive Karcher store is open with thousands of products, accessories and parts in stock. For Karcher sales and service, Hersham Electrical, Shipyard Industrial Estate, Ramsey.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And we begin with the news that politicians are calling for more details as to how an additional £20 million for healthcare will be spent. Treasury Minister Alex Allinson's asked Tynwald to approve a supplementary vote which would increase the Department of Health and Social Care's budget for the financial year. And it would see money come from the General Reserve and cover Manx Care's expected £15.8 million overspend, potential tertiary costs and other risks to the forecast. Members voted to postpone the motion. Speaker of the House of Keys, Juan Watterson, told Phil Gaughan why.
I think if this is a supplementary vote rather than a supplementary budget, we should know what the overspend is and vote on that supplementary budget. I think giving them the last sort of 2 weeks of the year with an extra contingency in that wasn't the right move, wasn't the right way forward. There was in that 20 million, 3.1 million, I think the quote was, general risk of performance on the financial forecast or something like that, which was a slush fund for any other overspends in the last 2 weeks, whereas I do want the Treasury, DHSC and Manx Care to keep the focus on right the way out to the year end and of course beyond that, to make sure that they're getting good value for money at all times.
And there was a bit of confusion about the explanatory memorandum, which should accompany motions such as this and explain in some detail what was actually involved. What went wrong with that?
Well, it would appear that the Treasury had submitted a explanatory memorandum but hadn't made its way onto the order paper. So a lot of people hadn't seen it. It was there sitting in the background on the register because people rely on the order paper for what they can debate in the sitting. So a lot of people hadn't seen that.
And of course it amounts to, I think it was 2 or 3 pages for £20 million.
Yes, it wasn't necessarily an adequate explanation, which I would hope that we would get something a bit more detailed ultimately with the supplementary vote, because one of the reasons, one of the things that tynwald tends to look for when a supplementary vote comes forward is, how has that happened? What have we learned? What are we going to do differently as a result? That wasn't a focus of this debate, and this was more of a procedural motion, but I would expect that that's where that debate should go when we get to the actual overspend of Manx Care at the year end.
Speaker of the House of Keys, Juan Watterson, talking to Phil Gaughan. Government has presented its final island plan update to Tynwald, outlining priorities for the next 18 months, including financial discipline, housing and security. The document, which builds upon the original from 2021, signals a shift from long-term vision setting to practical execution and measurable results. It was subject to a debate on the Tynwald floor, which spanned over 2 hours, as Siobhan Fletcher reports.
For Alfred Cannon and his Council of Ministers, the message was clear, that they are proud of the steps they've taken since the plan was first published.
Previous departments submitted annual financial plans as part of their budget cycle, but increasingly these were unaffordable wish lists. This year, Treasury will be continuing the regular scrutiny panel meetings with all departments to ensure we maintain financial responsibility, increase budget accountability and deliver better public services so our communities are clear about the value of our island plan.
For the Department for Enterprise, the next 18 months will be about action.
Going forward, we have a challenging year ahead in support of our island plan. The 25-26 period will see us deliver a strategy for transport that will set high-level policy for the development of infrastructure and services.
Our goal, Mr President, from all of this work is to support a healthier, more resilient Isle of Man with accessible, efficient and safe care delivered in a joined-up way.
When we look at where we actually started at the start of this administration to where we are now, I do actually think, given the circumstances, there's actually been an awful lot of progress made.
But several backbench MHKs hit back at the government line.
Has the island plan and this sort of annual debating become a bit like the old government plan debates and plans where we had an annual celebration of the success that have been in the last year and the number of tractors that have been produced and the number of people who'd enjoyed life in the rural towns and so on and so on? Have we got to the stage now where the island plan debate is a bit sort of Soviet in that sense?
I'm just not convinced we're seeing delivery through here. I'm not convinced that the measures the government are telling us actually show success are actually showing success.
In his summing up, the Chief Minister insisted, however, that everyone was on the same side.
This government will never forget that ultimately we are seeking to improve lives for everyone on our island. But honourable members, you must also remember, this never stops. Life is tough, it is hard, we have to do absolutely everything to secure people's futures in the right way. And as much as this administration started off 4 years ago with an absolute desire through an island plan to create a more prosperous and successful and vibrant environment, I expect very much those of you that are back next time to also want to express that desire and to look for the problems in society and to look to address them.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Public Health's reminding residents to register if they don't want their organs removed in the event of their death. The Isle of Man is moving to an opt-out system to replace the current practice. Lewis Foster has this report.
The Human Tissue and Organ Donation Bill received royal assent in July 2021. This means the island will operate a system similar to England, Scotland and Wales. However, there are still numerous operational and legislative steps to take before it's enacted. It is due to be implemented by July this year, with the first annual report to be prepared and presented to Tynwald 12 months later. It will replace the current opt-in practice where authorisation is required for body parts to be removed. The organ donation bill was originally introduced in memory of Daniel Boyd, a local boy who became an organ donor after a fatal car accident. Speaking on the government's YouTube channel, his mother, Diane, tells of the moment she found out he hadn't survived the crash.
Me and his dad, side by side, and in front of us was, the two doctors. And it was then they said that Daniel had gone, and that the Daniel we knew he wasn't going to come back again. Then they asked us, had we thought about organ donation?
They agreed to donate Daniel's heart, pancreas, liver and kidneys. They went to 4 different people, 3 of whom are still alive today. Diane dedicated her time to helping change the lives of others through her campaign to increase awareness and understanding about organ donation in the Isle of Man. Out of this grew the Human Tissue and Organ Donation Bill, which has become known as Daniel's Law. Another person to benefit from receiving a heart transplant is Nikki Leslie. Speaking on government's YouTube channel, she gave this message of thanks.
The only thing I can say to my donor family is I will take such good care of this heart, because without it I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't, there's no two ways about it. So the only thing I can do is take as much care of it as I can. And as I say, thank you. It's such a small, 2 words, but it does mean the world.
If you don't want to donate when the bill comes into practice, then you can record your decision on the NHS Organ Donor Register.
Lewis Foster reporting. Government has no current plans to implement permanent capacity solutions at any of the island's schools. A Freedom of Information request by Manx Radio has revealed almost half are using mobile classrooms, as Amy Griffiths reports.
There are 32 primary schools on the island, along with the 5 secondary schools. 7 of them are either at or over capacity, and some significantly. Ballacameen High School, for example, has 108 more students enrolled in this academic year than it has space for, while Henry Bloom Noble Primary in Douglas has 73 more. 18 sites have a total of 28 mobiles, half of which are more than 20 years old. The oldest is at Bunskull Gaelgach, which was installed before 1990. While the Department of Education says it doesn't know the advised lifespan of each of the mobiles, most manufacturers suggest between 20 to 30 years. When asked whether or not there were plans to replace older mobiles or for more permanent capacity solutions, the department said it does not hold or cannot, after taking reasonable steps to do so, find some of the information requested. The same response was given when asked if there were plans to build new schools in places that are seeing rapid expansion, including Ballasalla, as the Rayat Mai housing estate continues to extend. The primary school there has just had planning permission to build a double mobile, though, after another one was installed last year. Meanwhile, almost a third of the island's primary schools have fewer than 100 students. Derby is the smallest, with just 42 children attending, followed by Balath with 57 and Bunskull Gaelgach with 64. Currently, the only school due to see any improvements is Castle Rushen High School, which is set to have a replacement facility built by 2030.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, the Manxman is just coming into dock in Douglas as I speak. Down at the airport, it's all looking good. Flights in and out of Romsway are on time. And on the roads, the temporary traffic lights which were in place at Braddon Church have been removed, so there should be no issues going through there right now.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
Infrastructure Minister Michelle Haywood spoke live on Manx Radio this morning to discuss the latest with the Northern Civic Amenity site. From April, the Department of Infrastructure will take over the facility from the NCAS committee and, subject to final contract, Ramsey Town Commissioners will operate the site on its behalf. It's a solution, albeit for a year, that comes just 2 weeks before the site was set to close due to funding issues associated with Bride Parish Commissioners withdrawing financial support. We heard from Rob Cowell of Ramsey Commissioners yesterday, who said it was a step in the right direction, but was critical of Bride Commissioners and the MHKs for Ramsey and Ayr and Michael. Let's hear now then from the Minister, Michelle Haywood.
I'm sad that the DOI has had to step in to this. This was a local authority matter and the local authorities should have resolved it. I think the politicians who were elected to those local authority boards should have managed to use whatever skills they have in negotiating a settlement around this and to getting a way forward. And I refute the idea that the MHKs have stepped out of it. We respect local authorities and their ability to run their services. In this case, it proves that they're not able to run their services, and I'm afraid the sad consequence of that is it feeds into the discussion about what are local authorities for and what are their functions and how are they governed.
Can you envisage a situation, though, where the other three sites might think, well, why are we doing this if the DOI can step in?
Yes, that is a real risk, and we actually discussed this. I discussed it within the department. We've discussed it up at Comyn as well, that there's a real risk that local authorities start deciding that they will just abrogate their responsibilities and hand stuff back to central government. And, that's entirely what they could do until the law changes. And this is where the real blast comes, is that we've moved very rapidly to get the new clause into the Local Government Amendments Act, and you'll have heard lots of noise about other local authorities saying, we think this is dangerous, we think you could be requiring us to do things, and it is exactly for this purposes that clause has appeared in the Local Government Act, because or will appear in the Local Government Act, and when it's there we could actually turn around to local authorities and like, it is expected by your residents that you will be providing the service and therefore you must do so.
Bride Commissioners, where are they now?
They signed the agreement with all the other local authorities in 2017 about the mechanism that was being used to fund the site, and that was what was in place. They are the ones that decided to pull out of that agreement. They are making a contribution to the site. Residents of Bride will be allowed to use the site. And from a perspective of understanding what communities need, I understand that the community needs that site. I understand how valuable it is to everyone who lives up there in the north that has access to it. And things like the reuse centre, which is very much missed, is very much on my radar, that actually that should be reopened as soon as we possibly can.
Michelle Haywood on Manx Radio this morning. You're listening to Manx Radio. This is Update, and a volunteer at the Kenyans Youth Club in Onchan says being able to expand its premises will allow more young people to engage with its services. Martin McFarlane says he's been working on plans to extend the facility since last November and is pleased there's now a direction. He spoke to local democracy reporter Emma Draper.
It's great news. It's certainly well overdue. We've been working since November to try and expand the space. Certainly with what's happening in Onchan at the moment, we've got a lot of young people who are engaged and the facility's just not been big enough. So we're really pleased that finally we have an outcome.
And I know it's a bit vague at the moment. They've said it'll be going to the next board and stuff, but even that must bring you some comfort.
It's certainly got a direction now. We know what can be achieved. They've committed to the expenditure as well. So really the next phase now is to get the contractors in to see how quickly things can happen.
And how many kids attend your facility and how popular is it and how popular has it got to get to this point where it needs to expand?
So typically Friday nights are always going to be a busy night, and for us we're seeing between 40 to up to 60 young people on a Friday evening who want to engage, and this is the important aspect. They're coming to us, they want to engage and they want to get involved with what's happening in our project. So it's really important that we do provide those facilities and encourage these young people to come along.
And what kinds of things do you provide at Kenyans?
It's largely a space for them to come in off the streets to interact with their friends. We've got games consoles, we've got plenty of games for them to pick up. We also provide, football, so they want to go outside and kick around as well in summer months. So it's really driven by what they want to do, and the important aspect is them coming to us.
The commissioners are looking to fund the expansion from its reserves, which was confirmed during its meeting to be at £1 million. 2 board members voted against the proposal to fund the extension from reserves, Commissioner Catherine Williams and Commissioner Robin Turton. Some of the young people who used the youth club were at the Commissioners' public meeting where the debate took place, and this attendee said Kenyans means a lot to her.
I'm very pleased with the results that the youth club that I've been going to for 5 years.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
A recent survey of 5-year-olds in the island found more than a quarter have decayed, missing or filled teeth. In January, government said there was no funding to tackle the problem. Now, though, the Smile of Man toothbrushing programme's being expanded from next month. Cabinet Office Minister David Ashford says it's hoped the scheme will reduce the number of children needing urgent treatment.
We're investing an extra £286,674 into that expansion, and what that will allow for is for us to be able to provide fluoride varnish as a protective measure for all children from reception age through to year 6. It is not compulsory. It will be down to the parents to decide whether or not they wish to take that up, but we would urge that they do, because it creates an additional barrier for the children's teeth and protects them longer term. We're also rolling out additional support for new parents via the health workers. There will be increased activity around getting new parents to be able to learn how to brush their newborn children's teeth correctly. And we're also trying to keep the existing programme going and bring more primary schools in to be involved, just as Williston has been here today.
We all know that there's issues with dental waiting lists at the moment. A third of those on the waiting list for an NHS dentist are children. How much of that is playing into the issues that our 5-year-olds are experiencing with their teeth health?
So it's important we look at things holistically, and obviously dental waiting lists are something that plays a part in that as well. I know that Manx Care is working hard on the dental waiting list to bring it down, but one of the problems we have of children waiting for dentists a lot of the time is because of bad oral health to begin with, and the fact that they are requiring quite serious treatment in some cases, including tooth extraction. So having good oral health from the start, although regular dentist checkups are definitely recommended and should be happening with children, it actually is preventative in terms of longer term worse treatments that they will require.
Why was this programme chosen instead of, say, fluoride in the water, which is always starts a healthy debate on the island, should we say?
Well, exactly that. I mean, let's be honest about it. That fluoride in the water is something that comes around every 5 or 6 years as a political topic and a public topic for debate. It actually never seems to get majority support. There's always concerns around that. So we're looking at different approaches, to be frank. There's no point rehashing a debate that we've had many, many times before and not actually managed to achieve.
You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. Last weekend, the Manx Deaf Society held a Hearing Off, an awareness event that enabled volunteers to experience navigating through Douglas with hearing loss. 8 participants left the sea terminal on Saturday with earplugs, defenders and instructions on where to go for the next 2 hours, as Lucy Buxton from the charity explains.
A lot of profoundly deaf people, and actually people with sometimes moderate hearing loss, do start to feel concerned about going out. They become worried about traffic. They become worried about interactions in shops and cafes. Will they be able to hear? Will they feel silly if they can't understand? So it's giving that awareness to other people and also to shops themselves. You know, what can you do to make yourself be more deaf friendly? Have assistants who look at you, who talk to the customer. Life today is very busy and a lot of people are in a rush. We see that on the prom. So one of the challenges was for people to cross the prom using one of the informal crossings. So those are the ones that are not a zebra crossing. And generally within the group, people were saying they felt more confident because they had somebody who could hear with them, someone they could rely on just to check that everything was fine. They all said they enjoyed it, but they all did say that it made them think much more carefully and use their other senses. And it was quite restricting on not having that other sense.
Lieutenant Governor Sir John Lorimer was one of the participants.
It was really highlighting to us all, what a challenge it is when you're restricted hearing, and how you had to compensate for it. And they're obviously using your eyes a lot more here, would be more tactile. And sometimes how isolating it could feel when you couldn't hear everything that was going. You couldn't hear the traffic. You couldn't hear other people talking. You really had to concentrate looking at people's mouths when they were talking. So it was a really good way of highlighting the challenges of deafness.
Do you feel as though your senses were heightened during this experiment?
Absolutely. You were concentrating much more and looking around and trying to understand your surroundings. Yes, and I think the importance of understanding that deafness is an invisible disability. And of course, you may be engaging with someone who is deaf, but you just wouldn't know that. And particularly if you're not projecting your voice, or you're looking down, or you're looking away, and that may cause some real challenges.
You are listening to Update Sport next with football, hockey, motorsport and cheerleading. Here's Rob Timpson.
Good evening. Starting in motorsport, Manx brothers Ryan and Jamie Kringle will again ride for the Park Transport team in this year's 2 Supersport TT races. They'll be joined by a third rider in the Northern Ireland-based team, as it was announced earlier this week that Andrea Maiola of Italy would also be included in the lineup. All three will campaign Yamaha machinery in both races. Meanwhile, the Isle of Man has been accredited by the worldwide governing body for cheerleading. This comes after the success of Phoenix Rising, the island's elite-level cheerleading team, who won 2 bids to compete at the Summit in Florida last year, one of the most prestigious all-star cheerleading competitions in the world. This recognition now opens doors to more opportunities, such as participation in world-level events and potentially the Olympic Games, should cheerleading be added as an Olympic sport in the future. A spokesperson from Move It Dance Studio in Douglas said this achievement would not have been possible without the generous support of the local community. In football, Mark Wolfenden has been named as the Canada Life Premier League player for the month of February. The award caps off a good month for Wolfenden and St Mary's as the club won all 4 of their games. Rushden United's Scott Mason was named Under-21 Player of the Month, while his manager Andrew Moody was given the Managerial Award. Rushden also enjoyed a positive February as they won 3 out of their 4 fixtures and drawing the other. And in hockey, the island's under-18 girls' English plate journey has come to an end. The Manx side were beaten 6-0 by Folkestone in the semi-final.
Thank you, Darren, for the sports report. That is it for Update, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. I must also give my thanks to Chanel Saku. And if you have a comment on the news agenda or a story you think we should be covering, or just want to say hello, then you can email update@manxradio.com. And of course, there's a podcast of this programme. You can listen anywhere in the world at any time, day or night. Update is the Isle of Man's most subscribed to news podcast. If you know someone who you think would enjoy a daily bulletin of news from the Isle of Man, tell them Update's available as a podcast via YouTube, Apple, Google, Smart Speaker, Spotify, or the TuneIn app. Get details at the App Store or at manxradio.com. That's it from myself. Christian Jones will be in the Update hot seat tomorrow. Coming up next, it's Spotlight right here on Manx Radio FM.